my subconscious loved being a victim because of cancer, being bullied. Like all the negative things in my life granted me the attention from people. So I'm like, I gotta be a victim. And I always had to feel sorry for myself. Or it's like when I'm sick, that's when people care about me. And it's just like, no, people can still love me for me. That's what I try to help people just figure out. What is that subconscious limiting belief that's holding you back from whatever it is you want? Because I work with business people for sure, but I've worked with athletes. I've worked with men with pornography issues. I've worked with drug addiction. I've worked with alcoholism. And all in all, it's just a pain that you are coping with at the moment that is fueling some sort of addiction that you don't even recognize. And it's like, it is kind of our fault. We have to take accountability, but it's also like not your fault at the same time. Like, be gracious with yourself, but let's like find a way to move forward.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Remember You. We are sitting down today with Cooper Harrison, a purpose and identity coach, certified hypnotherapist, and host of the Conscious CEO podcast. After overcoming childhood bullying and a cancer diagnosis, Cooper discovered that most people's biggest breakthroughs don't come from better strategy or more hustle. They come from rewiring deep subconscious identity wounds that block confidence, abundance, and impact. We explore how true success requires integrating 4 pillars: mental clarity, spiritual consciousness, physical well-being, and sharp business acumen, and how to use them as a unified system rather than separate fixes that we hear all about. Cooper will share powerful stories about entrepreneurs who broke through their invisible ceilings by healing at the identity level, moving from self-doubt and burnout to genuine conviction and magnetic abundance. Don't we all want that? If you're feeling stuck despite your success, this conversation will help you remember who you really are and what's possible when you align all parts of yourself. Tune in to hear how to build a conscious business that scales with purpose without sacrificing your peace. And today, we want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Practice Peace, where you learn how to bring peace and profit into your high-growth companies. With only 1 hour a week virtually, you participate in peace sessions. All right, Cooper, well, welcome to the show. Thank you for being on. The first question is, you've overcome all of this stuff in your childhood, right? With bullying, cancer. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about your journey of what brought you here today and how these experiences metamorphosed you into what you teach today with all of your clients?
Well, first, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to get to connect with some like-minded people as you two sitting in front of me. And yeah, I guess the metamorphosis of myself and like being able to teach people that, it came from just like a lot of introspection, and it came from a guy who was super extroverted and always out and about, always being social, and especially being a guy that I played football in college, so just having like that popularity and having that social schedule and always partying and stuff. But when I got out of college, I really took time to be more introspective and be more introverted, which really connected me to the source, especially with practicing meditation during COVID. Because when the world, shut down and I was kind of going a little stir crazy, connected with the breath, connected with visualization, with sound, and being able just to be quiet. And then I realized, wow, this quiet stuff is actually a little scary at first, but it can unlock secrets within yourself that you didn't know. So with like the metamorphosis of my soul, of my spirit, I was able to unlock that. And kind of going through just the progression of this show, I was able to unlock that by just simply taking time and deciding to be quiet and actually be to myself for a little bit and just block out the outside world for a little bit. And, methodically doing that every single day for years and years straight. So yeah, that's the metamorphosis.
We've had a lot of people on this show, and one we recently had, she helps people manifest things into her life, right? So it sounds like you have a different process, which we'll get into a little bit more. But one of the big things that she talked about, and it sounds like it's what you did, was vision, ground, grow. And so it's like taking that time to understand, like, what is your vision, right? And where do you want to go with your life, and really get in touch with that. And then the ground is like getting in touch with your breath, right? And like doing your meditations and all those things and getting outside. And then you start to grow. So can you kind of walk me through how you were? I know you said you played football in college and stuff, but can you kind of go back a little bit and tell us more about, your childhood with brain cancer and bullying, and how that brought you to kind of this meditation and quiet time?
So for clarity, I had leukemia when I was 7. I was diagnosed with leukemia June of 2004. Yeah. And I was 7 years old. So leukemia, for those of you that don't know what that is, it is a blood-related cancer that starts in your white blood cells. I had to do chemotherapy for 2.5 years, and that period of time with chemotherapy was extremely painful and extremely isolating too, because your immune system weakens, and when it weakens, it's hard to be around other people, obviously, because you take that risk of being ill, being sick. And I remember like there were times where I had to step away from school and be away from school. And also like I had a principal who put a cot in her office during the day so I could take naps, which was kind of nice. She was the best. One of my favorite people I think I've ever come across. And she gave me a lot of special treatment, which I appreciated. But in the end, I think what that habit really taught me as I grew up was that rest is something that never should be taken for granted. Because you take naps when you're in like preschool and kindergarten, and then you don't take naps after that. And you're like, well, this is stupid, because like I was taking naps in 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade, and I didn't really miss that much school because like I had that accommodation for myself, and having that accommodation really helped me still be able to feel like a normal kid and still be able to go to school like a normal kid. Then also missing out on sports was another thing too, where it was kind of, it was a little detrimental, but it taught me that everything in life has its, I would say, temporary purpose. Athletics come and go in your life. Being sick, your health is the most important thing about you, because if you're not healthy and you're always sick, it's hard to really progress to where you want to progress. And I think cancer really taught me that. And cancer brought me that aspect into adulthood, that rest and recovery is just as important as, pain, struggle, and hard work and hustle. Because I feel like we are pushing that too hard in our society at the moment. I used to fall in that category, especially, I would say, in high school and college for sure.
I have a question for you. So just before we get too far past it, so you've had these different, catalysts, going through childhood bullying, the isolation of going through leukemia at such a young age when you just want to be a normal kid. But you mentioned you really overcame all these things. And when you were in college, you were in football and you were popular, super extroverted, partying, outgoing, and then transitioned into kind of monk mode. From what I'm hearing is a bit of a transition. And that to me, through all of those experiences, sounds like you've experienced quite a deal, a really big deal of identity change yourself. So when you, even just maybe because you brought this one up first, when you transition from, I went to a super big college too, and I was in a sorority, and I totally get being in that environment and then transitioning. But when you made that transition to go inward, what do you think was the hardest part for you? Because going from being super extroverted, feel like you need to be everywhere and just in that totally different mentality, and then transitioning to this space where you're working with people and you're helping people soften and quiet and totally slow down. it sounds like you really had to go through that for yourself first before guiding other people.
I can actually somewhat relate that to the portion where, being bullied as a kid, because when you're bullied, you feel isolated. And that happened, because like I would really just go home, go to school, go to practices for sports, and that was pretty much it. I spent a lot of time by myself in a way. I was like kind of prepped for it, but then again, it was also very sad at that time, like being, 13 years old, 12 years old, and not really having friends. That was hard, but in a sense, like it did prep me for when I got out of college and I started taking time to myself. Like it actually was something where when I tapped into that inner child, I was like, wow, I actually was good at this. But I just like came from a sense of like deep emotional insecurity of this validation. Like that's the thing that was, and to answer your question, that was the hardest thing to overcome, was this seeking of validation from people, whether it was like winning awards, because I won a lot of awards in high school and college, but I was never truly happy. And always seeking validation in my dating life, trying to like find a woman that can, love me and validate me as a person. And then trying to find validation in friends by being like the coolest guy or the loudest guy. And yeah, it was funny. I was talking about this last night, actually, about how my sought for validation was probably one of my big final identity shifts. Not seeking validation from other people anymore. And when I got over that, that's when I've really become the poised, zenful, calm person that people love to point that out. And it's funny because when I tell people all the time, I was the loudest guy, I was the most intense guy, I was crazy, like just so crazy, especially as an athlete too, playing football as a violent of a sport as it was. Yeah, I was loud, I was rambunctious. But when I got out of college and then COVID hit pretty much right after I graduated, because I graduated in 2019. So 2020 hits. And once I took that time to myself and I realized, I feel like I need to be heard because I'm not hearing myself. So I need other people to hear me. But now I have this opportunity to listen to myself for once and talk to myself for once and not judge it. And when I let go of that judgmental stage of myself, that's when I found the root core of who I was as a person, like growing up as a kid, just this very unconditional, loving child that was hurt in multiple ways by the world. And it made me grow a lot colder to where everything felt performative almost. I was like performing to receive love, to receive praise, adoration, material gain. But when you take that all away due to a pandemic, it really forces you to sink or swim with your own thoughts. So that's kind of that long trajectory of how, I got to that monk mode, as you were saying, or like that zenfulness that, people love to point out, but it wasn't always like that. I wasn't always zen. I was not all light and love. That's for damn sure.
I think we can all relate to that in every aspect of our life, right? Like I also think our lives ebb and flow a lot, right? And I call it, like some people call it the roller coaster, whatever it is. It's balanced. It's how fast can we come back into balance in our life. And seeing that our egos or our past issues or shadows or whatever you want to call it start to come back in. It's, realizing that and then finding that balance and finding your voice, right? So when you're talking about this with your clients, you work with really successful people. How does this show up with the people that you're working with? And how do you help them through that?
It relates to the TED Talk, finding love in what you do, because a lot of people don't really do what they love. They might actually be really good at it, but they don't love what they do. And it was funny because when I read The Power of Now, I didn't understand this until I read Eckhart Tolle's, one of the most profound books I've ever read. And some people may agree or disagree with me on it. I think it has a profound impact on, if you hate what you do, you actually create this negative energy output to the world around you. And it hurts, that it is a detriment to those around you. And I realized like that's what I've helped people overcome, is this detriment of hating the everyday life. Because like you like work a job, or you even like there were some business owners I've worked with that really hated their business, but they bought and sold the idea that they needed their business to make money, and like that was just going to create their happiness, when in reality like it doesn't. Like if you're not truly happy with yourself and you're not happy with your life, you're still going to find ways to be miserable. It's just like when you make a lot of money and you have a lot of security, you just find really interesting methods of coping with that. Usually it comes in drug addiction or alcoholism, or this need for material gain, or this adrenaline rush to seek danger, to put your life in jeopardy, like because you have this lack of self-love and lack of love for your life. Yeah. So
I can definitely confirm that for the listeners. So as like, I know they know me already, so I don't have to reconvene what my background is, but quick thing is I had a company, it was making a lot of money, and I thought I loved what I was doing, but I didn't. And my health was getting really bad. I was going through all these same things that you just talked about. And I didn't love myself enough to take a break, go to the doctor and, get my hip looked at. I was suffering. And, it wasn't until I took a step back and walked away from it that it really made me realize how much I was forming really bad habits, drinking a lot, doing the same things you were talking about, that, you don't even realize it when you're doing it, is what I'm saying. And everything you just said really resonated. I can say it's definite. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of people, are starting to see that. And I think the people that are awakening at this moment in time, during this unprecedented time, and in a sense, I think, people just want to be happy. People really want to be happy, but they don't know what happiness is, because we've listened to what everyone else says is happiness. And I was in that same boat. Like I thought being happy was being the best athlete ever, and just like getting all the awards, all the love, all the praise from being an athlete, or fundraising a lot of money for good causes. And it was all these things where it was definitely like performative. And at the end of the day, when I'm by myself, like I really didn't love myself at all. And that self-disgust, or like that I'm not a huge fan of the word hate, but like it was like a self-hatred. Like it showed in the types of relationships I was attracting romantically, the types of friendships I was attracting, the types of situations I was putting myself in terms of like kind of putting myself into danger. I was getting sick all the time because of like overwhelmed nervous system, which, kind of one of my journeys right now, I would say, is my nervous system, like reprogramming my nervous system on a physical level because of the chemotherapy and the football trauma, and like learning fascia and learning like healthier movement, not just lifting 7 days a week, doing yoga, I love cycling. I still lift 3 days a week, but also I'm learning Qigong right now, and like learning how to offer that to people down the line as well. So everything is just energy. David R. Hawkins, The Levels of Consciousness book. That's what I based a lot of my TED Talk on, was that specific book. When you live in fear, shame, or guilt, you are not attracting. You are not a magnet of abundance there. When you operate in love, peace, and bliss in your life, that's when you start attracting really, really awesome opportunities. Some people that I've worked with, they've struggled, and I don't mean to be insensitive, but like you do choose how to think, how to feel. And yes, environment is crucial. There are patterns and environments that can affect you. But in the end, like you also have to choose like happiness. You have to choose to love someone, you have to choose peace in a situation. Sometimes that is setting a boundary and choosing peace and like letting people go. But all in all, what I'm trying to say is your reality is created by you. And that's what I just try to help people, figure out. And like the subconscious that you run your programs on is unconsciously creating your reality. So when I figured that out, because I had this toxic positivity in my conscious, but my subconscious was all about being a victim, which was a point I definitely wanted to make on this show. My subconscious loved being a victim because of cancer, being bullied. Like all the negative things in my life granted me the attention from people. So I'm like, I gotta be a victim. And I always had to feel sorry for myself. Or it's like when I'm sick, that's when people care about me. And it's just like, no, people can still love me for me. That's what I try to help people just figure out. What is that subconscious limiting belief that's holding you back from whatever it is you want? Because I work with business people for sure, but I've worked with athletes. I've worked with men with pornography issues. I've worked with drug addiction. I've worked with alcoholism. And all in all, it's just a pain that you are coping with at the moment that is fueling some sort of addiction that you don't even recognize. And it's like, it is kind of our fault. We have to take accountability, but it's also like not your fault at the same time. Like be gracious with yourself, but let's like find a way to move forward. And that's what the hypnotherapy does. It's like we go into the brain and get super attached to the brain to eliminate the art of thinking, actually. So it's like I get into your brain, we go really hard for 30 minutes on this visualization, constantly thinking. So then afterwards, you don't have to think. You can just be.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to think about it. So kind of going a little bit.
I love that. That's such a great example. That's such a good way of like the process to describe that. That's great.
Yeah, it is. So to go a little bit deeper with this, you kind of focus on the whole person with 4 pillars. Can you go a little bit deeper on the 4 pillars that you work through with your process?
The 4 pillars is something I didn't really have confidence in until I listened to a psychic recently. So this is still somewhat new, but it is exciting because in order to create abundance in your life, true abundance, I believe in your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual health, and your kind of like your financial well-being, business well-being. And I use those 4 pillars because your physical health can grant you the longevity to be able to just physically do what you enjoy doing and have the energy to do it, because everything is energy. I care about my weight. I care about how I feel, because it's like when I wake up, I want to be able to just enjoy the day without feeling pain or like feeling groggy or feeling tired. And that's why, I care about what I put in my body. I care about my sleep. I care about my habits. I care about my exercise. I care about my heart health, because I want to live not even just like a long life. I just want to live an efficient life where I can wake up and I can still feel good and not have to constantly feel pain or anguish. So then mental health. I would say the mental part is the pillar that is going to help you create confidence in yourself to actually do what you want to do. Because if you don't mentally have confidence in yourself, you're not going to succeed. What people don't understand with the mental side, your mindset, it's important, but it's not everything. And what I mean is you have to have the mindset to go do the physical components. So what I'm saying is, because I read The Body Keeps the Score. So what I'm saying is the mental mindset, where your limiting belief is, your subconscious wound is, when you heal that, then you'll actually like move forward with the healthy habits, physically speaking, because like you'll want to treat your body better so you can live just like healthier. So that's the mental side. The spiritual side, that one's a little harder to explain, because I think with spirituality, people have just different viewpoints, which is totally fine. So I try to make this universal. when I did my Reiki certification and then I did an energy psychology certification, what I think of the spiritual pillar as, what is your highest self? That's the simple question that I ask you from a spiritual pillar perspective. What does your highest self look like? And when you answer that question and you align with that purpose, you actually align with source, universe, God, however you want to word it. It's just a word. Doesn't really matter. But what aligns you with the source, the highest self?
And let me pause there for a second because I want you to expand a little bit on this. And this is where Remember You blossomed from. So I've been working, I don't know if you've heard about this stuff, but actually Hope got me into it. It's the gateway process tapes. And one of the meditations that you work through is asking yourself these questions of, before we selectively came down here as energy into a physical manifestation, we have to ask ourselves, we selected to have amnesia, but we can remember our highest purpose, is what you're talking about. And so how do you really, is it through hypnosis? Is it through manifestation? Is it through, or meditation, excuse me? How do you help your clients remember who they are and why they came here to get to their highest purpose and do what they're supposed to be doing?
Loaded question.
No, I'll get vulnerable and get super woo-woo here. Basically, it was like a past life starseed type of reading with the psychic. This was a long time ago. And it's funny because like in college, I used to think this type of shit was quacky. Like I thought if you would have told me I would have had hippie tendencies in college, I would have said, you're crazy. No way. Those people are not me. And then, you turn into one of them. So, the starseed psychic reading that I did, it talked about my purpose. And she went through this kind of journey, how I was supposed to be here as they call it the gatekeeper. That's what she was saying, the gatekeeper. And I'm like, well, I don't like the word gatekeeper because that means because in society, we think of gatekeeper as someone who blocks you from information.
Withholding. Yeah.
But from what she was telling me, this lady goes, no, the gatekeeper is the person. You have the keys to help people find the information that they are missing because of all the outside distractions. We have technology, we have easy things to get addicted to distract us from finding out who we really want to be. So this psychic was like, you are the person to tap into people. And you can do it. And honestly, I could actually do it through just Reiki. I could just do a Reiki session with you, just have hands, hovering over your head or, your body or whatever. And part of the process of my Reiki healing for just like my client, for some reason, every person I've ever worked with, they have some sort of epiphany or something 3 or 4 months after. Because they'll always text me and they're like, hey, I started doing this, or hey, I'm getting a certification in this, or hey, I'm doing whatever. I'm like, interesting. And they're like, yeah, I just wanted to tell you that because I don't know. I just felt like you had a message for me and I just didn't know how to receive it till now, or whenever they decide to go pursue whatever it is that they want to pursue. So I kind of just took those tidbits. I like to use the hypnosis or the meditation. Hypnotherapy and meditation are different, sure, but they're very similar. I just think of hypnotherapy as just a step deeper into the meditation process from a visualization perspective. Because really, you're still eyes closed, you're still listening to something, and you're still quiet, and you're still just breathing. So I find them very similar. But for the sake of this conversation, I would say I do the hypnotherapy reprogramming session so I can help people find their limiting belief, but then also find what they enjoyed maybe as an unfiltered person. So what I mean is I talk about inner child. So when you're a kid, you wanted to do something that adults told you couldn't do. So what I try to help people is find that inner child longing that they always had, but then adults told them they couldn't do it. So that is where the visualization process goes in. I'd say even like the Reiki part goes into it. But yeah, I would say, yeah, the hypnotherapy, visualization process, meditation process is how I just help people find what they truly enjoy about themselves and what they enjoy in life since they were born, essentially. And we just, for some reason, as adults, we listened to people tell us we couldn't do something.
Right.
I do it, honestly, I think that's great. And I find that I use the example of when we're kids, because we have similar, all of us are hypnotherapists, have different processes, but essentially working with the same, concepts and same issues people are coming with. And I always tell people, it's like when you're born, your parents, you view them as like your God. It's like they're like the thing that is like the only source of truth, like they literally are creating shelter. They're creating like sustenance for you to survive. So as a child, you don't know anything else. So of course, you're going to be programmed, of course you're going to be, and your parents are only able to, give you the guidance as far as they've gone. And most of the stuff, and even therapy, was like not even okay, or like normalized, or even talking about these concepts until maybe 10 years ago. I mean, I'm so close with my parents, but we talk about it all the time. They're like, you're so far ahead of us, like emotionally, with some of these concepts, because it was like, if you were going to therapy, like that meant you were like a crazy person, like it wasn't like, oh, that's like an emotionally intelligent person, it's very boomer coded, but like, and they both have been through so much therapy, like either they're all like into it now, but it's just like, it's fascinating. And we're so lucky to be in this time where we have been able to have that shift. But go ahead, Christina, I think you were going to say something.
Yeah, I had two things. So the Reiki, I am 100%. It's really interesting because we're, like you said, we're all like energy beings, right? And so for the Reiki, I had this weird ass dream one day, and it was like basically telling me like you're a healer. And it told me that I was like, we're stardust, we're made of stardust, and we're made of black matter. And the healing with the Reiki, something doesn't want me to tell the story. The healing with the Reiki is to help move that energy through the body so that it realigns in a balanced way, because as physical beings, we hold emotions in our body that get stuck in the black matter, and it brings it a lot, that Reiki and whatever, maybe it's craniosacral therapy, whatever it is that you decide to do, whatever modality, it will help open up your emotional body so that your nervous system calms down and it brings out some of who you really are here to be. So I'm a big believer in it. The other question I have is it kind of interrupted you. So I think you have 4. So you have the financial. So I think we still have to talk about the financial or the business acumen piece.
The black matter stuff, that's a really, really good point that I never really thought of, but I'm gonna dive into that on my own time now. You made a really good point there, and I honestly never thought of that. So I'm gonna look into that. That's really interesting, and I really love that point that I didn't necessarily think of at first, but that's a cool dream that you had. And that's just to finish on the Reiki aspect, which I don't really do Reiki anymore as a service. It just didn't feel like a part of my practice. But my Reiki teacher was like, Reiki's in everything when you get attuned. Like you do Reiki now when you just talk to someone. Like it really is just an everyday practice. Some is just more intentional when you do the hands-on, which, I think part of my blessing that I can maybe give to a romantic partner is providing that Reiki just service to a romantic partner. Just like whenever she has like a hard day. That's something that I can give because I do love giving. I would say that's like an act of love for me to give to someone. So I think Reiki maybe was also a part of my destiny for that reason as well. But to get to
for like all of the like single girls out there, should they be calling you? I'm just kidding. Like a plug. It's like no more Tinder for him. I'm just kidding.
I did get off dating apps. Oh my God, like 3 years ago.
Yes, this is a dating reel for Cooper.
You'll give the best energy reset ever.
If you're having a bad day, girl, this guy's got you.
I love you. Just kidding.
Man.
Let's keep.
No, I appreciate the plug. Yeah, no, I'll get to the business pillar, but I will say the dating part of my life has been a very healing process for me, I would say, and also just this beautiful progression because of how much of a people pleaser I was. That was one of my limiting beliefs for a very long time. So healing that aspect through dating that, I wouldn't say it was a failure, but, just like dating, relationships that I've had that didn't work out, but they taught me and challenged me. And I'm super grateful for that. But to get to the business pillar.
Actually, I'm going to interrupt you one more time and ask you.
Yeah, go for it.
For some reason, I'm being called to talk about this. So I think relationships in our life, no matter where they end up, like if it's a romantic relationship, a business partnership, whatever, some of them are meant to be in our life for seasons, while others are meant to be in our life for lifetimes. And they always die because at some point we die and that relationship ends or whatever it is, right? So it's always some kind of death and rebirth. And I really believe that when we're talking about relationships, it's for us to see cycles that we're meant to break. And each relationship that enters into our life is for us to see things. And so as much work as I've done personally, I'm going to tell a little personal story, is I've had really like relationships. I've been married a couple of times, like divorced. There's all these things that you kind of look back and I'm like, oh, what was my limiting belief there? And what did I break? Maybe it wasn't, I wasn't giving myself self-love, or I had, I worked through this whole limiting belief of, I thought it was a safety thing. And I actually just fresh off the presses here, I went and saw a psychic yesterday and had an amazing session with her. And we really got down to the fact that a lot of the things that I dealt with happened probably in utero. And it was a very major issue with abandonment. And so every relationship that I get into, I go into people pleaser mode because I don't want to be abandoned. And so I want this relationship to stay together, even if it's unhealthy, so that I have it's an attachment thing, right? And so all these relationships come into my life to show me that. And until I can get to the root cause of it, it will keep showing up in my life. It's about then coming back into balance and realizing like I have this. I have a way now that I need to realize that I'm doing this, or I'm going into that shadow side and pulling myself back into what I've learned. So I don't know. I felt the need to have to talk about that.
But this is
No, thank you for sharing.
And I'm so glad, Cooper, that you brought that up, even though it was like a funny plug of your romantic offerings. But I think relationships though especially even with business, like your attachment styles and how you show up. It doesn't matter if it's romantic, platonic, or a business relationship, those wounds are going to show. So like there's so many times like in every like romantic relationship is always, I feel like it's like some form of like a spiritual dojo. Like you go in, you think it's for one thing, and then you kind of get, in many cases, you're humbled and you're just like, oh my gosh, like I'm reflected to these things that I thought I worked through, or things I didn't even know existed. And so if you're doing it right, in my opinion, trying and failing and, going through the process, it's like, it's only, if you can alchemize those experiences, you're only going to continue to get better. And I feel like those relationships and the way that you show up with yourself and taking care of those wounds, like you were saying, Christina, with abandonment, people pleasing, I mean, that bleeds into work like 100%. All of a sudden you're attracting people who just take advantage of you, or you're attracting people who, like again, like prey on the people pleaser personality or whatever else, and you're not really sure why this keeps happening, but it's still in that core wound. So I think it's super important. It doesn't matter what type of relationship, they're all important, and ultimately leading back to the relationship you have with yourself. And that's why this work that you're infusing into these folks that you're working with, that again sounds like mostly business clients, it's nothing to do with business really. Like it's, the business, it's like, yes, this is all great, but it's like what's going on at that subconscious level, that nervous system level, and understanding and unraveling that in order to show up in a way that's not only effective but is bringing you joy. It's like it's something I feel like people just totally skip until they're all the way at the end of, I have money, I've got the house, and I hate it all, so I think it's amazing and a good transition into kind of your next pillars, like bartering.
And we live in a society where like you can rent out your car to someone, you can rent out your house to someone with Airbnb, Toro, where like now I think we will jump to a system where we will barter for, like, if you don't necessarily own a house, but like you're in a conscious like community collective group of people, you'll have like a place to stay and food in exchange for, I don't know, some sort of, service that you guys can find equally fair, because I think conscious people are fair with how they transact in their business.
Well, they believe in what I think. What I do believe is that most people in this arena believe that every interaction is a mutually beneficial partnership or interaction. And so then you find that mutual beneficial relationship in everything that you do.
Absolutely. For me, so with the business component, the business pillar, I strictly tried to teach sovereignty to people, which is a very hard subject for a lot to grasp. You really do have to be enlightened to talk with me about this, because there's a lot of concepts that I don't believe in from like a monetary system perspective, like the banking system, because I did my research on how the banking system was created and how the Federal Reserve was created. So to have that conversation, you have to eliminate the constructs of debt and things of that nature, because I joined a collective group, golly, this was like 4 years ago. I'm not in it anymore, but the guy was he's from San Diego. He showed how our current system, how it was built in the 1800s and 1900s, and how like the debt system has not much meaning or as much hold over you as you are told to believe, because they just sell your debt to like all these places. Like your social security number gets sold on like the black market every day. And he showed how that happens. And when I finally like kind of like lifted, the curtain behind everything, I was just like, oh, okay. So from a business perspective, what I try to help people do is to find that sovereignty in their business to where I can get them connected with people to help leverage business credit, to help leverage debt. That's not necessarily bad, because that's another thing we're taught is like all debt is bad. All debt's not necessarily a bad thing. It just depends on what type of debt that you are creating for yourself. Because I have a master's in business administration, so I took a lot of economics classes. I took a lot of finance classes, accounting classes. So I got a master's into the monetary system in a way, but also in a way I know it's the true monetary system. So I'm playing devil's advocate in a way where I'm playing both sides of the spectrum. So I try to teach people these concepts, because in reality, it all could come crumbling down, and then it's just like, well, your debt won't even matter, because like when the system crashes, like they can't hold you to it.
Because just a when.
It's really just a when at this point. So like when it does happen, when it does collapse,
well, that's why
that won't even matter.
Honestly, that's why they're moving over. They created the Genius Act, and they're moving over to stable coins, because they know, a big government knows what's going to happen. and so they're covering their asses for it. And it goes back though then for like, anybody who would actually be listening to this podcast, they have to understand that sovereignty at some point is so important that you're taking responsibility for you and your energy. That's what you're saying. And, things like being an employee that is meant to enslave us, right? Because there's all these rules and regulations that were set up since like 19 or 1880, whatever, and into 1913 or whenever they changed the amendment to the Constitution around the Great Depression time. Well, all these things then came into play to continue to enslave us. And, you look at taxes and things like that. It's, if we get into it, it's what we're being sales tax, property tax, federal tax, state tax, add it all together, people, and get out of jail and figure out a way to come together as a society, as a consciousness to say, we don't stand for this anymore. We're taking our own sovereignty back and our own freedom. And this is the way that we choose to live as a community. And until we come together and stop fighting that you're red and you're blue or whatever it is that you care about and come together as a community, then this kind of stuff is going to continue to affect your life. But there's a lot of groups out there that are working towards this sovereignty and this better community. And so that's my TED Talk for today. I'll let you go back to the screen.
No, absolutely. Well, yeah, because I studied trust law, set up my own irrevocable trusts and, have created my own systems of protection. Not that I teach people that right now. I don't know if it's in my practice. I'd love to maybe get down there someday. But from the business perspective, what I try to just help people do from the business pillar is to create confidence to grab large amounts of money for their business so then they could just hone in on that and try to have success a lot quicker than it would to try to work, 2 jobs to fund this business. And also too, there's a lot of ways to make money just on the internet now, to where, I teach people, okay, if your credit's not great, you have your LLC though, and you have some good methods put in place. Maybe it's, creating an affiliate, business where you get affiliate marketing deals and you sell these products and you get commissions, and maybe that's what you start doing. Or maybe you start creating content to where you get paid, per view or per click or, however it works. And yeah, I just, from the business pillar, I just teach people like a foundation that they can set to try and get large amounts of money so they don't have to burn themselves out working 3 jobs to do what they love, but they can still find something within their niche. So hypnotherapy for me, I do UGC content around health and wellness brands and meditation, like sleep masks, because meditating with your eyes closed is great, but wearing a mask is super helpful. So I found that as an entry point to doing affiliate marketing and making extra money off of these sleep masks that I believe in my heart is a good product for people. So it's just helping people find ways to make money that they would enjoy doing, and also it feels right for them to promote. So that's kind of what the business pillar encapsulates, and then teaching credit systems and those sorts of things.
All right. So then how do you bring them into hypnotherapy with those 4 pillars?
With hypnotherapy, that is because the first session I do, because I have an intensive program that I have offering. The intensive program I do specifically is to start at the ground level, what the limiting belief is. I use the sway test. Some people use muscle testing. I use sway testing just because I just think it's easier for me to walk through with someone. So I sway test them, find out their limiting belief. When I get that limiting belief, in the next session, I do that first hypnotherapy session. So I'll make my script. It's usually 20 to 30 minutes. We'll do that. We'll integrate I'll give my client something to work on for like another 2-3 weeks before I meet with them again, see what their improvement is. And then depending on how they're progressing, we'll stick with that one hypnosis. And then in the next session, we'll plan out, depending on what it is this person is looking for in their life. It might be business. It might just be personal life too. Depending on what it is, I have a good way of being flexible and kind of being versatile with what I do. So depending on like what they're asking for, the next session, it's like a little bit of a talk therapy type of session, but then it's creating like a strategic initiative for someone's life, whether it's like, hey, so I'm starting a business. So then it's like, okay, you need to go do your LLC, or you need to go like make accounts like for these affiliate brands. I'll look up some brands that are within like this person's niche that they want to get into, give them some recommendations to reach out to, who to reach out to, and then give them an activity that makes them happy. So something that connects with their inner child. So that's how I kind of finish it off. And I tell my client to do this usually like once or twice a week, not to overindulge, but to give them something to congratulate themselves on.
Yeah, and this isn't like, let me just clarify this for a second. You're not talking about like, some people have a habit or whatever that they go to like push the emotions down. So like if you go to ice cream or something, right? And ice cream is really there for you.
That's funny. That is kind of a go-to, yeah.
Like you eat the ice cream because you're like stressed or whatever. But there's other people out there that just really genuinely like love ice cream and use it as a treat because that reminds them of their childhood or whatever. And they're like really, really enjoying it and like excited about it. And so that's what you kind of work with your clients on. It's like finding that one or two things that you're really excited to do that makes that your child like super happy.
Yeah. And, like I worked with a guy who had a pornography issue. So we did like a hypnosis session. We did like a first discovery session. Then we did a hypnosis session because I found out the limiting belief was abandonment. So the pornography was like the dopamine hit, and the abandonment came from, one of his parents. So yeah, getting over that. And that's what we need to figure out. So did the hypnosis session around the abandonment, and and we're like grown adults, so like we still like have kind of grown adult things like we got to do. So he's a grown adult and he's got a busy schedule, but he really liked video games, but he never carved out time to play video games. So I told him, hey, let's play 2 hours a week of video games. You can do it 1 hour increment, like Saturday, Sunday. You could do 2 hours Sunday. Yeah, he like rewarded himself with doing that. Then, we worked through that abandonment again, where instead of like honing in on healing the abandonment wound, it's more, I created a visualization around him being, it's like him going through hardship and visualizing that, but then having like 3 or 4 people that were close to him reach out to help him through this. It was like him climbing a mountain or something, and he was like tripping and falling, and he was being lifted by certain individuals in his life. So reprogramming that's like my phase 2. So the first phase is healing and letting go. The second phase is actually seeing your new belief in action. And he got into a relationship pretty closely after that, and it's gone very well for him. So that's like one example of like how I progress through a client. And then the like more of the business side of things is like someone who wants to start a business, but they are afraid to post on the internet. Like we'll work through that confidence issue, and it's usually just like I'm afraid of like being seen. So then we work through that, And then like phase 2 is like someone going through the progression of being seen by a lot of people and being adored by a lot of people. So that's like the phase 2 part, while building like the LLC, while building like a website, email accounts, or like affiliate marketing accounts, and, just like the business structure goes on in the background week by week. So it doesn't feel as daunting, because that's like the other thing. When you try to do everything at once, yeah, it stresses you out. But then like when you just do little by little each week and not try to like reinvent the wheel, it's a lot easier. So, and we have some crazy AI systems nowadays where you can build a website in like 5 minutes if you really want to, with like Lovable and stuff. Like, I mean, it's just like, you could really just like implement your business into a prompt and it'll build it for you. So like, that's what I just try to help people do from like a business perspective. I know I talked about like more of a personal life perspective, but so that's how the business perspective would work. And the hypnotherapy is like, that's what I start with and then build upon. And then people will still come to me for one-off meditative recordings and stuff that I make for people as well. So
after this, I have a couple people I want to introduce you to, because a friend, I do a lot of investments, and there's an AI solution that I came across, and she's really awesome, and I would love to introduce the two of you. And then a few other people that I think can help your clients too, that might be good for partnerships. So we can stay on, and I'll do that. So that's okay. My next question really quick is, you talked a little bit about like how small we really are in the universe. And I want you to kind of talk through about to help people realize that like what our ego is telling us maybe isn't really reality. So how do you help people see the really minute that we are in this huge reality?
For me, it's nature, like going out in nature and just seeing how big the trees are, how big the mountain is, how, like when you're on a beach, like looking at the ocean, just how big it is. And you're just a little speck, and I try to hone in on that as much as I can. And also like having cancer made me more grateful about the little things in life, and just like having this experience with really savoring little moments with just people you care about. It's tough because like, we think about the big picture, we want to visionary think, and it does help. Like being a visionary thinker does help you become successful in whatever you want to be successful with. But when you find yourself as more of a microcosm in the macrocosm of the world, it humbles you in the best way, because as much as I love main character energy, I do think that we are also support characters of other people's stories at the same time. And being cognizant of that, it really just helps you see people as humans, and you see people as equals. I don't like to feel superior to others. That is the one thing as a pet peeve that I will never really let go. Because there are just people in all spaces, just in every space, including the space that I'm in. I've come across some people that think they are superior to others, and the mannerisms and how they speak to others, I can tell. When you just tell yourself, I'm not better than everyone or anyone, I'm me, like I'm just Cooper. And it really eliminates this whole like needing to like jump ahead or jump above other people, because I do see that a fair amount where people come from in terms of like it's like they want to believe what I do is like an aesthetic, but it's not an aesthetic. This is a real process. Like it's not just for funsies. This is not just for the Instagram effect to brag about. This is like real shit. I've had some people, I will be honest, like I have had like a couple people quit my program at times because like it was very real.
Yeah,
because like
people,
it got too real. And I guess like, yeah, so what I'm trying to say is like when I go out into nature, when I just see how big something is, it helps me remember I am important to this world. Yes, I am important to this universe, but I am just one person in with billions of people here. And those other billions of people, they also matter. So I don't know if that answered your question.
It does.
But that is where I was
there's
going.
so many like beautiful parts of that. And the other day I was driving in the car with my husband, and it's spring here in Chicago. So the trees were just really beautiful. They're like really green right now. And like was looking at them because we were stuck in traffic. And I just turned to him and I said, aren't these trees just beautiful? Like, and how, like, the universe or God or whatever you want to say, put them here on earth. And they're like perfectly designed. And he goes, yeah, honey, I just think of the trees every time I go outside as the keepers of the earth. They clean our ear. They clean the air. Their roots.
So cute.
Their roots make it so that their roots make it so that our ground doesn't erode away, and they hold us all together. And so your analogy of going out into nature is like when you're surrounded by the keepers of the earth, these beautiful trees. It does make you realize how we're all here to be part of this beautiful experience, and we each have our unique opportunity to shine in this world. And I do love how you talk about there's equality amongst all of us, not one person's over another person or anything like that. And that comes back to your whole thing about sovereignty, right? And also, if you really start thinking of it, like I look at when I have clients come in to the office and they're in my chair, trusting me with their deepest, darkest secrets, right? I look at them also as they're there to teach me something. Every single person that comes in, I'm not necessarily there. I'm there to help them, but they're also teaching me something that I need to learn. And everybody who comes in, I give them a lot of love and see them in that light of love. And when you take the time in nature and do these things, realize that it's all part of the biosphere of love. That's what we're here to help each other see, right? So it's beautiful.
Absolutely. Yeah, biosphere of love. When you're in the loving, energetic frequency, there's a lot you can tap into, and you just become magnetic. That's the other thing, like you just become a magnet of abundance, that people just love to be around. So it's a good, but it is good to not get this complex of like you're better than everyone. I think it is easy to fall into that trap at times because we have this comparable internet world. And I would know this because I fell into this at one point in time where I was comparing myself constantly to others. And I started thinking I was better than others and worse than others. And then it just created stupid stress. So when you just like let that go with your ego, that's when you invite in abundance of healthy friendships, relationships, and a healthy career, and just like a healthier you, just in all forms.
I'd love it. So my last question for you is, if you stripped away, your name, Cooper, your title, hypnotherapist, all these things that all these titles that you have for yourself, who are you at the core?
I'm just a soul in a meat suit. I'm just this speck of dust, stardust, as you said earlier. I'm just like a speck of stardust here to shine in some way, shape, or form, and also like collectively shine with everyone around me and around the world. I'm a light to place into another just like collective of lights to shine a lot brighter, because I can shine by myself, but it's a lot brighter when you're doing it with billions of people. So I'm just I'm a speck of stardust here to shine with everyone.
Awesome. So
that's such a good answer. I love that.
I do too. So if people want to shine with you and be part of that beautiful collective, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'm a big Instagram guy. Conscious Coop. My website is cooperharrison.org. Pretty clean and simple. You can definitely find that pretty quickly. And then, Instagram, Conscious Coop. I am on Facebook. I think Coach Coop Conscious Mentorship is the Facebook name. I tried to change the name.
We'll put it all in the show notes, so just make sure we have it so people can.
Yeah, of course. I am on LinkedIn. If there's like for some reason LinkedIn people that listen to this, I do have a LinkedIn as well. Just Cooper Harrison MBA. And then I am on TikTok as Conscious Coop. I'm more unfiltered there, but I still use TikTok for sure. And I'm on Substack. I have the Conscious CEO on Substack, and my podcast, I'm in the process of like revamping into the Conscious CEO, but I will have that done from a naming perspective this week, and then I'll start making new episodes with that hopefully soon. But the Conscious CEO is the Substack and the podcast. So I'm trying to make all the nomenclature universal.
You'll get it. So thank you so much for being on the show. It's been great. Yeah. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for your time. Yeah. And appreciate you both.
I loved connecting. This was so great. And there's so many follow-up things that we will definitely chat about.
Absolutely. No, I appreciate you guys' time. Thank you.
And to all the listeners out there, thank you so much for listening to another episode of Remember You. We love you, and we can't wait to bring you the next episode.